real stories of werewolves of Dogman history from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
The Memorial Day Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, the smell of pine sap and wood smoke still takes me back to the night when Marcus and I saw it for the first time. We'd been camping in northern Wisconsin for 3 days, our little pop-up trailer tucked between towering white pines that creaked and whispered in the wind. Marcus had built up the fire higher than usual. He said it was for warmth, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept scanning the tree line. That's when we heard it. Not a howl exactly, but something between a growl and a mournful cry that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The fire crackled and hissed, casting dancing shadows that made the forest look alive, breathing. Marcus reached for my hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with mine. "There," he whispered, his voice barely audible over my hammering heart. At the edge of our campfire's glow, between two massive trees, it stood, watching us, easily 8 feet tall, covered in dark matted fur that seemed to absorb the firelight. Its eyes reflected our flames like amber glass, intelligent and ancient. The creature's massive chest rose and fell with each breath, and I could see the outline of powerful muscles beneath that thick coat. It wasn't quite wolf, it wasn't quite man, but something that existed in the space between dreams and nightmares. For what felt like hours, we stared at each other across that small clearing. The dogman tilted its enormous head, studying us with what I could only describe as curiosity. Then, as silently as it had appeared, it melted back into the darkness, leaving only the scent of wet earth and something crazy and wild. Marcus squeezed my hand tighter. "Did you see that?" "I saw that," I whispered back, and we held each other close until dawn, neither of us sleeping, both of us changed. But that was years ago. Now I sit alone in our kitchen on Memorial Day morning, staring at the folded flag they handed me at Arlington. The triangular case feels heavier than it should, like it's holding more than just fabric, holding all the words I'll never get to say, all the camping trips that he and I will never take. They explained how Marcus passed to me 3 different times. The first officer spoke about an IED. The chaplain mentioned heroic actions in saving his unit. The casualty assistance officer had diagrams and timelines that were supposed to make sense of how my husband of 12 years became a name on a wall, but none of their careful explanations could bridge the gap between Marcus laughing at our kitchen table 6 months earlier and the suffocating silence that had since become my life. The doorbell had been ringing all morning, well-meaning neighbors with casseroles. My sister wanted to drag me to the Memorial Day parade. Friends who think I need to get out and be around people. They don't understand that their sympathy feels like drowning, that their careful voices and pitying looks make me want to scream. I need the woods. I need the place where Marcus and I were happiest, where we felt most like ourselves. The old pop-up camper has been sitting in the driveway since his last leave, gathering pollen, looking abandoned. But today, something about its faded blue and white exterior calls to me like a lifeline. Moving with sudden purpose, I dragged out our camping supplies from the garage. The Coleman lantern, it still had his fingerprints at the base. The sleeping bags still smelled faintly of campfire smoke and his aftershave. Each item I unpacked felt both like a blessing and a curse, bringing him closer and emphasizing his absence simultaneously. By noon, I was hitching the trailer up to my truck, ignoring the concerned calls from my sister and the gentle knock of the neighbor from next door. The engine turned over with a familiar rumble, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Wisconsin's northern woods were calling, and I was going home, the only place where my Marcus still felt real. The gravel road winds deeper into Chequamegon National Forest than I'd ever driven alone. Every mile took me further from cell towers and concerned voices, closer to the wild silence I was craving. When I finally found the perfect spot, a small clearing surrounded by towering pines, with a creek bubbling nearby, The sun was already sinking toward the horizon. Setting up camp alone felt like learning to walk again. Marcus always handled the stabilizer jacks while I dealt with the electrical hookups, but now I was fumbling with both, my hands shaking from more than just the evening chill. The pop-up trailer fought me as I cranked up the canvas walls, the mechanism stiff from months of neglect. When I finally got it situated, the familiar outline against the darkening sky brought tears that I didn't know I was still carrying. I built a small fire using Marcus's method: tinder, kindling, then gradually larger pieces. He taught me well, and the flames caught on the first try. The orange glow pushed back the gathering darkness, and I settled into one of our folding chairs, clutching a cup of instant coffee that tasted like ash. The forest around me pulsed with life. Owls called to each other across the canopy. Something small rustled through the underbrush, and the creek provided a constant, soothing murmur. That was what I came there for, that connection to something larger than my grief, that reminder that the world continues its ancient rhythms, regardless of human loss. But as full darkness settled over the clearing, I began to notice sounds that did not belong to the natural symphony. A branch snapped too loudly in the distance. Footsteps that didn't match any animal I knew. The back of my neck prickled with the sensation of being watched, but when I peered into the darkness beyond my fire's reach, I could see nothing but shifting shadows and the gleam of distant eyes that might belong to raccoons, or deer, or maybe something else entirely. I convinced myself it was nothing, just my imagination amplified by solitude and grief. After all, what did I expect to find out there, except memories and wildlife? Maybe even another glimpse of our old friend, the creature that had shared that magical night with Marcus and me. If only I had known what was really watching me from those trees. The first sign of real trouble came just after midnight, when my fire had burned down to glowing embers. A twig snapped close to the trailer, too close and too deliberate. I froze in my chair, coffee mug halfway to my lips, listening with every fiber of my being. The normal forest sounds had gone silent, as if even the crickets sensed danger. Well, what do we have here? The voice cut through the darkness like a blade, rough and slurred with alcohol. My blood turned to ice water. 3 men emerged from the tree line, their faces hidden in shadow, but their intentions clear in the way they moved. Predatory, confident, spurting out to surround my campsite. "Pretty little thing all alone out here," says another voice, younger, with a nasty laugh that makes my skin crawl. "Awful dangerous for a woman to be out here by herself." I set down my mug with shaking hands, and I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm not bothering anyone, just please leave me alone," I said. "Oh, but we can't do that," the first man said, stepping closer to my dying fire. In the dim glow, I could see his stubbled face. I could see the cruel twist of his mouth. "See, we've been watching you since you got here. Noticed you're all by yourself. No husband, no boyfriend. That's just not safe." The third man, silent until now, circled around behind my trailer. I could hear him testing the door handle, rattling the windows. My heart hammered so hard, I was pretty sure they could hear it. I edged toward my truck, keys clutched in my sweaty palm. "My husband will be back any minute," I say, hating how my voice shakes when I lie. They laugh, all 3 of them. "No, he won't," the leader says. "We checked. So that military decal on your bumper, the way you set up camp like someone who's done it 1,000 times, but keeps looking around for help that ain't coming. You a widow woman, ain't you?" Terror flooded my system as I realized they've been stalking me. They've been studying me. They've been planning this. I lunge for the truck door, but the youngest one is faster. He grabs my wrist and he spins me around toward the campfire. Now, where are you going? We just want to be friendly." I wrench free and I dive into the truck, slamming the door and hitting the locks. My hands shake so violently I can barely get the key in the ignition. I turn it, but nothing. I turn it again. Just a grinding sound like the starter is trying but can't engage. "Are you looking for this?" The leader held up a handful of cables, grinning in the red glow of my taillights. "Disconnected your battery, sweetheart. Amazing how quiet you can be when you know what you're doing." They closed in on the truck from all sides, their faces pressed against the windows. Their hands tested the locks. The youngest one produced a crowbar from somewhere, tapping it against the passenger window with deliberate menace. "You can make this easy, or you can make this hard," the leader called through the glass. "But either way, you're coming out of there." I fumbled for my phone. No signal. Too deep in the woods. The men were getting bolder now, the one with the crowbar drawing back for a real swing at the window. I pressed myself against the driver's seat, and I closed my eyes, whispering a prayer to Marcus, to God, to anyone who might be listening. And that was when I heard it. The sound that rose from the forest was like nothing human, or nothing natural. A roar that seemed to come from the earth itself. It cut through the night like thunder, and suddenly my attackers froze, their faces turning from cruel confidence to confusion, and then to something approaching fear. "The hell was that?" the youngest one whispered, crowbar forgotten in his hand. Another roar, closer this time, followed by the sound of something massive moving through the underbrush. Branches snapping like gunshots, the ground seeming to vibrate under heavy footsteps. The three men backed away from my truck, suddenly looking less like predators and more like prey. And that is when it emerged from the darkness. The Dogman was even more imposing than I remembered him, its 8-foot frame seeming to absorb what little light filters through the canopy. Its amber eyes burned with intelligence and rage as it surveyed the scene. Me trapped in the truck, three men with weapons and evil intentions. The creature's massive chest heaved with each breath, and its lips pulled back to reveal teeth that could snap bones like twigs. The leader of my attackers stumbled backwards, his face gone white as paper. "What the hell is that thing?" The Dogman's response was to rear up on its hind legs, towering even taller, and release another bone-shaking roar that echoed through the forest like a war cry. Birds exploded from the treetops in panicked flight, and somewhere in the distance, a pack of coyotes began howling in answer. "Run," I whispered, although I doubt they could hear me over the sound of their own terror. The youngest man with the crowbar tried to swing at the creature, but the Dogman moved with impossible speed. He knocked the weapon from his hands with a casual swipe of one massive paw. The man screamed and bolted for the trees, crashing through the underbrush like a wounded deer. The other two creeps didn't even try to fight. They turned. They ran, stumbling over roots and rocks in their desperation to put distance between themselves and this nightmare from the deep woods. Their panicked shouts faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of my ragged breathing and the Dogman's steady presence. For a moment that stretches into eternity, the creature and I stare at each other through the truck's windshield. Its eyes are so alien, yet so familiar, and they seemed to look right through me to something deeper. I could see no threat there, only a kind of ancient wisdom, and incredibly, what looked like concern. The Dogman tilted its massive head, and I swear I saw something like recognition in those amber depths. It remembered me. It remembered that night by the fire with Marcus, when we were just three souls sharing a moment of wonder in the wilderness. Slowly, deliberately, it turned, and it padded over to where the men had dropped my battery cables. With surprising gentleness for such massive hands, it picked up the cables and approached the truck. It left the cables on the truck hood, and when it finished, it stepped back and looked at me again, its expression somehow conveying both protection and farewell. Then, as silently as it appeared, the Dogman melted back into the forest. With shaking hands, I opened the hood and put the cables back in place. Turning the key, the engine roared back to life. I don't remember much about breaking down camp or the drive home, just fragments of moonlight on the highway and the reassuring rumble of the engine beneath me. My hands didn't stop shaking until I pulled into my own driveway as dawn was breaking over the suburban rooftops. But now, sitting in my kitchen with that same folded flag, everything feels different. The silence doesn't suffocate me anymore. The empty spaces Marcus left behind still ache, but they're filled with something else now, a presence I can't name. But I absolutely do trust. They say there are things in this world that we will never understand, forces that move in the shadows beyond our comprehension. The military officers who explained Marcus's death spoke of duty and honor and sacrifice, using words that felt hollow against the magnitude of my loss. But that night in the Wisconsin woods, I learned that some mysteries don't need explanation. They need acceptance. Marcus used to say that love doesn't end when you pass on. It just changes form. Watching that impossible creature give me back my battery cables, I finally knew what he meant. Love becomes protection. It becomes the guardian that emerges from the darkness when we need it the most. The Dogman didn't just save me from those men. It reminded me that I'm not as alone as I thought. Somewhere in the space between the seen and the unseen, between the possible and the impossible, there are forces watching over us. Some wear uniforms and serve overseas. Others prowl the deep woods, on legs like tree trunks, with eyes like amber fire. That Memorial Day taught me that we honor our guardians not just by remembering their sacrifice, but also by recognizing that their protection continues in ways that we might never fully understand. The flag on my table represents one kind of guardian, but the memory of Massive Paws carefully handling battery cables represents another, and both are real, both are sacred, both deserve our gratitude. I think I'll go camping again this summer, not to escape my grief this time, but to say thank you to whatever it is that watches over widows in the Wisconsin woods. Because now I know Marcus kept his promise to always protect me, even if he had to call in some otherworldly help to get the job done.
To Long Island Bigfoot and all veterans everywhere, we here at Scary Stories NYC would like to thank you for your service to America on this Memorial Day. Thank you. Hank?
Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.